You just need to press enter and then it works.
Do you want him to do it now?
Now, yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's fine. I'll talk to you. Hey everyone, I hate my voice, but nice to meet you all. But today I will be talking about building products for the Webflow community while running a Webflow agency as well. So these are the topics that we're covering today. So first of all, just give you an introduction about Videsigns and about myself. So I've been using Webflow for about 3 years now, and Videsigns is about 2.5 years. And since last year, we've been building products for the Webflow community. Next slide. We have about 4 products, Formally, Flowplay.
Next slide.
Press enter.
Oh,
Did it work?
you can do it.
So I made this in Webflow anyways. Anyways, so we have 4 products, which is Formally, Flowplay, Flowpilot, and a Chrome extension. And today I'll be just teaching you, just going through about my journey building products, as well as some of the learnings. So it's not been as a smooth sail as I make it look like on Twitter and LinkedIn. And some tips if you are building products for the Webflow community, things that I've learned throughout, and maybe 4 tips that will help you build a better product. So I got into building products through clonables. It was my favorite part of Webflow before they cut its balls off. It's not gonna work. So once I was building clonables, I felt like as the time was going on, I was building more complex clonables. There was a lot of custom code and a lot of questions from users asking, how do I change this? How do I add this? Can this do that? I didn't think of that. It was just clone it, use it, nothing more. But as we got bigger and we started working on more complex clonables, I was...
Hey.
It's okay. Thank you.
You did say press enter.
I did.
They just weren't pressing enter.
Fair enough. So then, when we were building more complex clonables, I felt that there was a need to create documentation, teaching people how to use the tools that we were making. And that was when we were already working on a multi-step solution. It was something that we worked for a client that I was working with, and they didn't want to use Platform. All the existing solutions that were there were not supported or were just not working well. So we were building this for the client as well as for ourselves. And as we were adding more features, it just didn't feel like a clonable. There was something there that I just felt like it would be better as a product. And now looking back at it, it was because it was so flexible. You could pretty much use it however you want. You could design it however you want. The attributes work the same. So for me, I felt that just putting it out as a one-time clonable didn't do it justice. So then quickly, we wrapped everything into a product, gave it a name, some random branding, fonts, whatever, make a nice landing page. Fun fact, the landing page took 2 months, the product took 1 month. So it took a long time to actually do the design, the 3D render and everything for the landing page, which is one of my tips is, if you're building a product for the design and the developer community, I would suggest building a marketing website that looks really good. Put all your effort on the marketing website, because those aren't your normal users. They are not going through SEO, they're not looking at copy, they're looking at how cool the website is. And if you can engage them, that does like 50% of your sales, and then you just need to show them your product. That's one tip. You can go to the next slide. Yeah. That's what happened. So I was building clonables, proto products. I would say there was a bit between products and clonables, and then we started building products where they have their own documentation, examples, clonables, whatnot to support people using the tools that we built. Next slide. Cool. So how do we find product ideas and how you could find product ideas for yourself? The first one is build what you want. So for example, I needed a multi-step form solution for a client. We worked on it, we built it up, and we realized, okay, there's something here that we can package it up and productize and sell it to users. So that's one easy way, and that's the benefit of being in an agency or a freelancer, is that you know what other freelancers want. But if you don't, you can ask them, right? And the second part is anything that you repeat, like for example, if you're using sliders and most of the time you have the same code structure, find a way to package that up into a clonable, and then slowly you'll sort of find your way out to building products. So I would say if you build anything, any custom code that you use, it doesn't need to be a big project, just a small tidbit. If you can sort of make it customizable, easy to use, attribute based, that is a really good product. And if that's a bigger product, then you can wrap it up into a whole thing, put pricing on it and stuff like that. And the last one is repurposing client work. So what we tend to do in agencies and as freelancers is that we build specific stuff for one client and we never think about it, right? So for example, a client asked us, is it possible to get all of our components in one page? We said, yes, that's possible. We created a page. And while I was training them, they asked me, why can't I just store it on the side panel and I just click and copy and paste? That was the idea for our Chrome extension. So now we built it for that client, and then we realized, okay, this could be useful for not just other clients, but also developers who could use it for their internal projects. You could store all your components, your templates in one place and reuse it quickly. So that's how we think about products. Any problems that we can solve with attributes, it should be easier than whatever that already exists out there. So for example, we have Flowplay, which is a video player library for Webflow. There are existing solutions out there like player.io, but there's always something that we can do better. So the thing with player.io was that it was all ID based and it was very hard to customize. The UI sometimes doesn't work. You have to write code to customize it however you want it. But with Flowplay, everything's attribute based, so we make it easier, and that's what we then package into a product. Next slide. So a few learnings from my journey as a web developer now going into building products is that you should be confident enough to charge for it if you think it's going to make the product better. So when I was making Formally, it was free and everything was going to be free. And the only reason I wanted to make it free was that it almost feels like there's a need in the Webflow space for everything to be free. So FinSuite has their CMS solution that's free, Refocus has their tools that's also free. There's so many existing tools and clonables and products out there. I almost felt like there's a pressure to keep everything free, and probably it's my imposter syndrome as well. I felt like if I was going to charge for it, everyone's going to call me a scammer and going to ask me all my money back. So I was so afraid to charge for it. But when someone challenged me saying, you built something so cool, why not charge for it and then use that money to make the product better? Because to be honest, if Formally was not paid, I don't know whether I would have the funds or even the motivation to keep adding features or making it better. So if you can, and if you think it will make the product better, don't feel afraid to charge for it. There's a tip with that I'll get to about pricing. Second one is, if you're a small team or a freelancer and you want to build products, your focus will split, and mine did. So last year, I was so into building all these products. We built like 3-4 products, but we weren't focusing on agency work. So client work started declining. I wasn't focusing much on them. And to be fair, I thought we were doing well, but once you take a step back and look at the numbers, yes, product did make money, but it doesn't make as much money as agency work. So I felt like, okay, we need to focus on agency. That is primary. Product is just a nice to have. It's a supplementary income. It probably will never be the main income unless you have a product that targets a much larger audience. Similar to like what William does, where they target Figma and Webflow users, stuff like that. You may spin it out into a whole product business. But if you're an agency business primarily, I would suggest be very clear with the split. Agency is your main, product is your side. Don't lose focus. Agency comes first, your freelance career comes first before the product. That's my second tip. And my third one is, it's tiring. It's never ending. Instead of working with one client, you have 100 clients. Everyone has a feature that they want. Slack support, even on weekends, people have questions. And I just feel bad not replying, saying like it's weekends, but support takes time, bugs. So especially with something like a form, which I would say is the most important part of the website. It powers so many businesses. That's how most people get money through the internet, is through forms. And if it breaks, that's a big issue. So every time we have a bug with Formally, I panic the shit out. So that you have to consider the products that you're building, the impact that you're having. Right now, Formally has about 1.5 million script calls every single month, so unique script calls. So that many sites are being loaded. There's amount of pressure that builds up to make sure nothing breaks. And adding new features, you've got to test it out. That's the worst part, is testing all the features. And especially with Webflow products where people could be building it a million ways, There's no way you could test for all of those. So that's something that you also need to take into account when you're building products, is that you got to make sure you're testing your products well and also know what the impact is. That's my 3 learnings. Next slide. It's down, but it's my fault. Anyways, at the top, it was supposed to say marketing. So if you build a tool or a product, I see a lot of you actually do build something. I see so many small clonables, small tools, resources on Twitter, but you only ever mention it once or twice or maybe for 3 months, and then it just completely fades out. That's completely natural because you have a shit ton of work to do. Again, as I say, it's not primary, but you always need to put at least something a week out there. Clonables, examples of other people using the tools, anything to get the word out there. That's very important. Second one is, if you're charging for it, do it as a one-time payment. Lifetime deals make about 60 to 70% of Formly's income and about 80% of Flowplay's income. So it's much easier to sell a one-time plan at like $300 than it is to sell an $18 monthly plan. You have no idea how many people ask for refunds, even if it's like $8 a month. They're like, give me back the money. So we haven't had anyone who purchased the lifetime plan for like $300 and asked for their money back, ever. So it's much easier to sell that, gives you a good cash injection. And as I found that yesterday when I was watching YouTube, is that if you have a product that's a vitamin, meaning it's just a small add-on, it's a small tool that's part of a much bigger stack, those are better off as a one-time payment. So if it's a tool that does just one specific thing, if you want to monetize that, I would suggest always put it as a one-time plan. You'll get more people to buy that. However, if you're building a painkiller, which I would suggest Formly is a painkiller, it helps you build multi-step forms, that I would suggest charging on a monthly, but even then, if we can, we try not to. So at Videsigns, whenever we are building products, we make sure the cost of actually running that product is low or zero. So Formly, besides Webflow and Memberstack, has no recurring cost. So even if people stop paying for it, it's not going to cost us a huge ton to maintain it. So that's another thing that you can think of when you're building products. Make sure you're not relying on third-party APIs or expensive APIs that could add costs as you're adding users, and that, at the end you lose money on that. Third, as I said, is focus on the landing page, especially if you're building products for designers and developers. That is super important. And finally, this one took me like 2 years to figure out. Add an FAQ to your page, as well as a documentation. It will stop people asking you the same question 10 times every day. That was like 90% of the Slack messages. Was like, how do I do this? How do I do that? Does it work with Airtable? Yes, it does. Put it on an FAQ, put it on docs. It just saves you a lot of time. So that's my 4 cheat codes. And that was supposed to be a surprise, but that wasn't. This was made with